You're listening to WMPG 90.9 Gorham, Portland, Southern Maine Community Radio from USM. Live from the Orion Cygnus arm of the Milky Way galaxy, this is Scientifically Speaking, a weekly half-hour program devoted to elegant curiosities. And I am one of your hosts, Sarah Chang, and joining me as always is Bernie Rhyme, DJ Starwatcher. How are you, Bernie?
Yes, hi, Sarah. Very good, thank you.
Bernie is our professor of the astronomy lab here at USM and our local protector of the night skies. Reach out to us at WMPGScientificallySpeaking@gmail.com, or you can head over to WMPG.org to find the last 5 weeks of archives of all of your favorite shows, including this one. Bernie, could you let our listeners know what is up in the night sky for this coming week?
Yes, certainly. So this is Friday, April 21st, the day before Earth Day. We have a waxing crescent moon. It was new on the 20th, so it'll be waxing crescent. It's really the best phase because you can see the Earth shine on the other part of the moon. It'll be a challenge to catch. It'll be just 1 day old. And then, let me see. Okay, so then you'll have a few planets you can see in the evening sky. You can still see Mercury, and that is below Venus. And then further up into Taurus, you'll have Mars. And then if you get up early, you can see Saturn in the morning sky. And the next night, the 22nd, we're going to have the first good meteor shower of the year. That's the Lyrids. They're going to come out of the constellation of Lyra, which is part of the Summer Triangle. So you might catch a few of those the day before, and you'll catch some more in the morning of the 22nd. So look, maybe 15 an hour if you're lucky, if you're away from the city. So a couple good things going on this week.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Bernie.
Yeah, sure.
And if you couldn't take notes fast enough, you can also check out the monthly What's Up column in the Portland Press Herald. All are welcome to Southern Maine Astronomers' monthly star party on Saturday, April 22nd, 2022. That's tomorrow. It's called An Evening of Astronomical Exploration, and you can come and join others in an evening spent fraternizing with amateur astronomers, hobbyists, and beginners alike, and observe the stars together. There's no equipment required, as the club will have several telescopes set up for your viewing pleasure, although you can feel free to bring your own equipment if you would like. The event will include a laser pointer tour of the sky, presentation on micrometeorites, and the International Dark Sky and assistance with using and fixing personal telescopes. This event will occur rain or shine, and if inclement, the meeting will occur indoors and include talks, telescope demos, and observing tips. The event will be from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. at 179 Neptune Drive, Brunswick, Maine. And you can call 207-751-4651, or you can visit the website at southernmaineastronomers.org for more details. Welcome to another episode of Scientifically Speaking. We have a special guest, partly in commemoration of Earth Day, but partly just because we got a chance to invite the incredible Sarah Long from WMTW. So welcome to the show, Sarah.
Wait till after the interview to call me incredible. As I'm listening to Bernie give the update on the night sky, I'm thinking, have I been mispronouncing the Lyrids this whole time? I think maybe I had been saying the Lyrid meteor
I think
shower.
either way is probably
Either
fine.
way is good? Okay, good.
Yeah,
I
a
feel
lot
better.
of them are either way. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because
Yeah,
as a
yeah,
meteorologist,
yeah.
and I suppose we're going to get into the fact that that's what I do, I forecast the weather, but as a meteorologist, people often look to me for tips on the night sky as well.
great.
So I act as a not professional astronomer telling people sort of what they can
No, I'm
see.
glad when weathermen mention that, because I tell that to my students, the weather person will mention something about that.
Yeah.
And that's good.
Yeah.
That's really
Great.
cool. Do you
Yeah.
guys study? I mean, I guess you do study meteorology at night too. It doesn't really matter
Yeah.
what time of day.
Yeah. There's weather 24/7. Exactly. So over my career, I've had some very strange hours. And right now, I'm about 25 years into my career, and I'm actually working 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, which is such a strange thing. And I call it the unicorn of meteorology shifts, right? Because there's weather, again, 24/7, so you always need somebody around. And I've had many years when I would get up at 2 a.m, or I'd be going home at midnight. So 9 to 5 just feels very normal. And I'm not even sure I like it. But anyway, go on.
Too normal.
Well, thank you for coming on to our show and to share some of your experiences and We're really excited to learn more about your insight into some of the crazy things we've been seeing even the past 5-10 years. First off, how did you end up becoming a meteorologist?
Well, so it's not as straightforward as some people. A lot of folks in my field, if you ask them, when did you know that you wanted to be a meteorologist? They pull up a memory of a tornado or a hurricane or something that's like, this is when I knew, and I was 5
Did
years
they
old.
really though? I
Yeah,
don't know.
right?
I'm skeptical of those people, to be honest.
Right? Yeah. It makes for a good story, though, either way.
Exactly.
I was sort of a different, I took a different route. So I didn't know what I wanted to major in college. And so I actually went off to freshman year at UMass Lowell to major in physical therapy, of all things. I lasted a semester of health courses before during that semester, I was much more interested in the homework that one of my dorm mates was doing, and she was a meteorology major. And I was so excited about her homework every day. And I was like, well, clearly I'm doing something wrong, right?
Yeah.
This is what I want. I don't want to be studying anatomy and physiology. I want to be studying the sky. So
Wait, did she tell you about her homework? Were you like...
Oh, I had her come in to my dorm room and we would do her homework together.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, on top of the homework that I was doing I wasn't doing obviously very well because I was much more focused on figuring out what I wanted to do, switch my major or what have you. But yeah, so after one semester, I switched majors. I remember it was one of the first moments where I really stood up to my parents. Who, I come from a family of accountants. Everything makes logical sense. Numbers and, everything has an answer. And I came home and said, you know what? I'm going to change my major to meteorology. And my parents were like, oh, no, you're not.
No, you're not.
But I fought for it, and I think maybe they just saw, clearly this is something she really wants. She's thought about this. And I was like, really, this is my life. And it was kind of the first time that I felt like an adult, I guess, in freshman year. In college. So the rest is history. I earned my bachelor's degree in meteorology. I went into it probably a little naive, which I think is a good thing. I actually struggled in calculus when I was in high school. And so I think if I knew all of the courses that I was going to have to really take and do well in, I probably would have shied away from meteorology.
Oh, wow.
But I was so obsessed with this homework that this my friend Liz was doing that I was like, no, this is definitely what I want to do. And so, engineering, calculus, and physics, and then I would take chemistry, several semesters of each of these, and Calc 2 was actually my speed bump. I had a really hard time.
Hey, me too.
With Calc 2. Yeah. It's also the class where I met my husband. So the first time I took it, not so good. But I eventually passed. And then Calc 3 and differential equations, no problem. So, I think you just stick with it, right? You just never know. I was nervous about Calc 3 after having such an issue with Calc 2. So there you go, folks who are listening. Just put your mind to it. And if you don't get it the first time around, keep going. Yeah, so during my 4 years of undergrad, of course, I had to decide what I wanted to do with meteorology. And I was petrified of talking in front of people. In fact, we would have to do these, they're called synoptic discussions in front of our classmates. And there is only about 10 of us at most. And we would have to give our sort of overview of the forecast. And I was so scared to talk in front of these 8 to 10 people. I'd be in tears ahead of it. And so people would say, oh, what are you going to do with meteorology? Because everybody, I think, associates meteorology with the person on television. And I would get so angry. I'd be like, meteorologists do more than just give the forecast on television, thinking that I was being tough guy, right? And here we are, of course, years later. But what happened was I did several internships during my undergrad, and this, I think, is my number one piece of advice. Not that you asked for advice, but my number one piece of advice to any undergrad is intern anywhere you can get an internship. So even if it's an unpaid internship 1 day a week, but it gives you an in to something in your field, go for it and spend the time doing that, because it gives you more of a feeling of what's out there in your field. So, I did internships from the Air Traffic Control Center in Nashua, New Hampshire. I interned with a private weather company. I sent up weather balloons at Memphis
awesome.
International Airport for a summer for a study through that was funded by NASA. So. And then I did my internship on the top of Mount Washington, and it fit. That was exactly when I knew, this is it. So,
Wait, what about Mount Washington was so much better than air traffic control?
Right?
Memphis, Tennessee.
Right.
Or something.
Well, the thing about Memphis and sending up the weather balloons, I do not like heat. And of course, it was the middle of the summer. We were sitting out in the middle of between
so you wanted to go to the
two-
coldest place.
Exactly, right? So I was still cooling down. That's why I went to Mount Washington. What I loved about Mount Washington is that it felt like a family. And so you would leave to go up to the summit for 8 days at a time, and you would be on a shift of people that included volunteers who would cook for us, the observers.
That's nice.
I know, right?
Yeah, right.
The observers, the interns. It was truly a family. And, at the end of the day in the summer, Mount Washington, the summit can be a very busy place. Of course, you've got the Cog Railway coming up, the Auto Road, you've got people hiking. It's really like an amusement park in the middle of a forest. So at the end of the day, everything would go quiet. And just the few of us that worked up there for the state park and the observatory, it's like having the place to yourself. It was just so magical. And also to be in the middle of that weather, right? I mean, it's known for having some of the craziest weather, certainly in the Northeast, but really around the world, because it has an observation station where people are 24/7 observing. So we know that it's extreme. There are extreme conditions up there. So I just fell in love with all of the aspects of that. And I finished up my degree actually a little bit early so that I was ready to accept an observer position there. And I think it was the best decision that I made. And here's why. The observatory is a nonprofit, and they focus on several different branches of meteorology. So we would have educational programs for, groups of kids, but also just for families coming through. We would be conducting research for several different outfits. We would be doing hourly observations, which is really where the climate record is coming from the Mount Washington Observatory. They've been taking these observations since the early 1930s. And so, that contract to take hourly observations is through the National Weather Service. That is only a portion of what the observatory does. And sort of everything else is built off of that. And then, you've sometimes in the middle of winter, once you work there full time and the state park folks wouldn't be up there in the winter when I was working up there. You might have to be a plumber for an afternoon, or you might have to fix some electric or something like that. So, it was just such a great first place for me to sort of dabble in a bunch of different aspects of meteorology. And one of the aspects was also radio. We would give radio forecasts
Nice.
to public radio and a couple of radio stations in the valley of Mount Washington Valley. And that's what I end up loving the most of all of that. So after spending years of being like, we do more than give the forecast on, over the airwaves, I just loved crafting the forecast and boiling all of that knowledge down into something that's usable from for the listener. In that case, the listener over the radio stations. But now you sort of transfer that over to television, because I thought there's no way I'm going to make a living just doing radio forecasting. And I probably could have. There are certainly plenty of people that do that
Does
on
it
their
pay
own.
less?
Yeah. And but I thought, all right, one of my mentors was on television in Boston, and she was like, I think you should just go for it. So I did. I made the leap. I went from the top of New England down to, I like to say, sea level.
Yeah,
And,
we're like 10 feet above sea
yeah.
level.
And the rest is history. So it took me many years to sort of get comfortable in front of the camera. I think one of my biggest moments, and if there are some communications majors that are listening, is learning. It sounds so simple, but it's so hard. Learning to just be yourself.
Yeah.
I think so often I would put up this wall of like trying to prove myself or trying to put on this different persona so that, when people come out of the woodwork, because they always do, everybody has an opinion. If they have a problem with something that you said or a way that you looked, you can say, well, that's that persona. That's my weather on-air meteorologist persona. So they're not really attacking me. But what I realize is that the more I am myself, that stuff doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
There are other meteorologists in the market that people can watch. I hope my boss isn't listening. But it's true. We are all working. There are, just offhand, probably 20 of us, right, in the Portland market. And we're all working off the same exact data. It really comes down to our experience, the things that we've seen over the years, the collaboration that we do within our weather teams, and then how we present that story and how we connect with the viewer. So again, we're all using the same numbers, and our forecasts are never going to be that different. But it's all about that connection.
Yeah.
I don't know how we got there. My goodness.
Yeah, right.
I was like jotting down questions while you're going, like, she answered it.
Yeah,
oh,
right.
she answered it.
Okay, I'll let you guys ask some questions now. I'm sorry.
But no, I think so. One thing that you had mentioned, I just wanted to go back a little bit about you falling in love with Mount Washington and like working as a team there. It almost kind of alludes to this is like what you want in terms of a job and what gives you joy in a career. And I feel like, I don't know, Bernie, what you think, but like working in a team that is all like working towards the same goal, that it makes you feel like you're part of something and you bring value and you're contributing. And so that's a good feeling. But I did want to ask, so I don't know much about the observatory up on Mount Washington, but how come, like when you talk about, the Mount Washington, you have like crazy extreme weather. It's like when people say that, oh, the temperature is like negative 135. I'm like, how does that inform?
Bernie's our fact checker.
We're not that cold.
But like, how does that inform me at 10
feet above sea level? Yeah, like what difference does that make to you, right?
Yeah.
Great question. And the answer is quite a bit, actually. You might be surprised. So, we're having Mount Washington in our backyard. And that's how I sort of look at things, I guess, at scale when I'm looking at weather maps and
we
where
can
I'm
see
getting
it from here.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So that right in our backyard. It's like having weather data in the upper atmosphere 24/7. So when we're forecasting the weather, we not only need to know what's going on right outside our door. We need to know what's going on 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, you keep going, thousands of feet into the atmosphere. All of that impacts our weather. And so a couple of times a day, and especially during specific weather events, there are weather balloons that are sent up across the nation from the National Weather Service, and they have what are called radiosondes that are attached to them. And so it's like a little computer in some styrofoam. Or maybe it's changed. I've been in this business a long time, but maybe it's something a little bit more earth friendly at this point. But back in my day, it was styrofoam. And so what that does is it gives you a temperature profile as you go up in the atmosphere of what the temperature is doing, because typically temperatures cool as you get higher in the atmosphere, but not always. And that's called an inversion. So we need to know when that is in place. We get the wind direction, wind speed, based on where that radio sonde is sending back the location data, humidity, all of that is being sent back. And all of that data, including the observations right outside our door, are being sent to supercomputers, which are then spitting out a forecast. So if anybody has watched a local forecast or dabbled in meteorology at all, you've probably heard of the forecast models that we use, like the GFS and the European, and they are fed with all of that current weather data, and then based on that data, they spit out sort of what that model expects to happen. But each algorithm is a little bit different. And so that's our job, to sort of know where their strengths and weaknesses are. So we would never put out just raw model data. We're at the point where we still need that human touch of sort of interpreting that data. So back to your question, why is Mount Washington so important? It's like having a constant weather balloon sitting at 6,000 feet in the air just to our west. And that is such valuable information. Now, even though it's so valuable to me as a forecaster, I still argue that one of the best things the observatory can be used for is education, because it's so cool. I mean, right? I mean, 231 mile an hour wind gusts back in the 1930s. Yeah. We saw just earlier this year when we had that Arctic outbreak that they got down to 47 below, tying their all-time low record. And this is the stuff that gets your imagination going and gets kids and even adults excited about weather. So for me, I think that's the most important thing. I mean, obviously the climate record's important. The weather data that we're able to use in forecasting for here in southern Maine is important. But the more people we can get excited about our atmosphere and about science, and that's such a great platform to do it. You know, when I would be giving tours up at the observatory, we sometimes would have school groups come through in the spring or fall. And, you know, when you get groups when the kids are like just starting to become aware of like, oh yeah, like I need to be cool, right? like this stuff doesn't interest me. And then we would bring them up into the tower, the observatory tower where the wind instruments are, which means it's unobstructed. It's where the winds are at their greatest and being measured. All it would take would be a 30-mile-an-hour wind, and these kids would lose all pretense and be like, "Oh my gosh, this has to be 90 miles an hour." You're like, "Actually, it's only about 30 miles an hour," but I love that when you can make people sort of forget about all of their, whether it's insecurities or just forget about how they're being perceived, and they're just truly enjoying it. It's what happens when people come into the news station and we put them in front of the green screen. You know, they're like, oh yeah, you know, this stuff is kind of cool. And then you're like, hey, want to do the weather? And they stand in front of it, and it's just, you know, it all drops away, and they're just having a blast. Yeah.
So can anyone visit the observatory? Or
so in the summertime, they're open to their membership. So you can actually, once you're on the summit, you can join the observatory. Well, you can do it right on your phone if you can get service up there. Or you can go down to the museum. There's a Mount Washington Observatory Museum that's in the summit building. And if you join to be a member, you can get a tour of the observatory. I believe they're back to doing tours. Certainly over COVID, that went away for a bit. But Yeah, and you can get a tour and go
Yeah.
right up into the tower and everything.
Yeah.
So, and you're supporting a really great institution.
Good. Yeah, I never got a
Yeah.
tour. I've been up there, but I never went inside.
Oh,
there,
well,
so
we'll have to go on a
yeah.
field trip. What do you say?
Yeah, okay, definitely.
Okay.
Of course. Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah.
Let's take the show on the road.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Can I ask a little bit about your time now at the station
Sure.
and what that's like? So you talk about how you all have the same data, the 20 or so meteorologists in the Portland area, but a lot of how you maybe present or interpret that data is based on experience and
Yep.
your teams, et cetera. Where exactly are you getting raw data from Mount Washington, or where is this coming from, and what are you using, and what is the size of your weather team that's
Right.
working with you?
Yeah, so we have a team of 5 people right now, which is amazing.
Wow.
That is the biggest weather team that I have been on. And where are we getting our data from? It's actually very easy for folks to get the same data that we use online. A lot of it is from the government. We are getting, so I talked about the observatory doing their hourly observations. They're contracted by the National Weather Service to send those hourly observations in. The Weather Service is also, and our office here in Southern Maine is in Gray, the National Weather Service in Gray. They are also collecting data from several other observation sites around the region. And so that's where we're getting our current data from. The National Weather Service is also very important in the way that they're the ones who issue any watches, warnings, advisories. So if you hear about us talk about a winter storm warning or a severe thunderstorm warning, that comes from the National Weather Service, and we're actually required to share that with our viewers. Obviously, that's why we're there, and we're there to keep you safe, but that's an FCC requirement, I believe, for us to share that. And it's great that we've been able to hold on to the Weather Service being the only outfit that is actually issuing those warnings. There have been some private companies, some of the larger ones like AccuWeather that I'm sure some of you have heard of, that have tried to sort of sneak in, trying to have their own warning system. And so far that has not really made much ground, which is good. So that way we're all on the same page, because our job really is to keep the public informed and safe and not confused about, sort of any severe weather or impactful weather that's coming their way. And so if you had every meteorologist or every television station being able to issue their own watches and warnings, it would be mayhem.
Yeah, I can see. Yeah.
Yeah, so the Weather Service is important, especially in that way as well. And so really they're an extension of our team. So I talk about the 5 meteorologists that we have on our team, but the Weather Service, we also work closely with them. We're in touch with them throughout the day through chat rooms and, certainly any updates that they might have for us. And then in terms of the forecast modeling, there are different websites that massage the data to, look certain ways, and you might be drawn to the colors or the graphics that one of these websites uses, but it all comes from those forecast models that, again, are run by the government. So we have a few here in the States. We have the European, there's a Japanese model there. I mean, the list goes on. So it's actually pretty accessible to the public, which I think is a great thing. But with the advent of social media, of course, the problem is when somebody puts themselves out there as a meteorologist, but isn't one. And that works against us keeping a consistent message for the public.
You still have weather people that, like citizen type weather people that have a little station and they can add to it? You have those?
Yeah, we love our weather spotters. We have quite a growing group of weather spotters, and they make our job so much easier. They're our eyes and our ears out in the field. So I'm sitting in an office that's right off of the news studio with no windows. We do have webcams, so that's good. I feel like I've got a window over Portland Harbor, right? But no windows. And so here we have this group of people who are weather enthusiasts who report their some of them report every day what their temperature and wind speed and humidity is, but they're especially useful during storms. In terms of, are you getting sleet? Are you getting freezing rain? And what does that mean for areas around you? And how is the forecast unfolding? So having that ground truth is so important to what we do.
Yeah.
So I guess you could say they're part of our team too. So
Okay, good.
yeah, we're a team of thousands.
You have been listening to Scientifically Speaking here on WMPG with myself, Bernie, and Sarah Long. We'll have another episode continuing this conversation next week, so definitely stay tuned for us 11:30 a.m. next Friday. And for now, Democracy Now! Is up next. And from your favorite nerds, we'll end today with a joke. What kind of underwear do meteorologists wear?
I know this one.
You do?
Yes, they wear thunder pants.
Oh.
No, wait.
That's a different answer.
It's a different answer.
It's actually, this one is Calvin Klein.
Oh, Calvin. Very nice. Very nice. That I would have not heard.